Today on Metaphysical Mississippi, we have Duann Kier. She is not only the founder of Metaphysical Mississippi, but also a psychic channeler as well as an author. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Metaphysical Mississippi. I'm your host, Emily, and of course we have co-host Krista. And today we have Duann Kier, and we're so excited to have her.
We have been waiting for this.
Yes. Not only is she a psychic channeler, she's also an author. I know you have 2 published books, as well as you have been published in a book of essays with other writers. That one's On the Wings of Isis. You had a book, Fundamental Talisman.
That's
I'm gonna get it. Skip over that one. And then Return of the Divine Feminine, Rise of the Divine Masculine, and The Men Who Are Calling for Her Return. So I have both of these books, and I haven't finished them, but I love them, and I've already started turning down the pages. But anyway, that's enough about me. We're here to talk.
That's always a compliment for an author when somebody says, I've underlined and I've turned down pages and I'm making a mess of this book, and the authors go, yes.
I was like, oh, should I?
Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah.
Oh, should I write? Oh,
yeah. It's supposed to look like it has been through all sorts of stuff by the time you get through with it. That's a sign of that it's right. Yeah.
like our Bibles. I remember back in the days when I was big into Bible study. Boy, I had that highlighter and I had the different color pens, and I went to town on that thing. And when you were at church, if you saw somebody with highlighted Bible, you knew they were spiritual. You knew.
Serious.
You knew they.
Yeah. Well, Krista, you two, I did my introduction, but why don't you just introduce Duann through your eyes for the audience?
So, as many know, Duann was the original founder of Metaphysical Mississippi, 2017?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I first met Duann at a Metaphysical Mississippi meetup. I think it was just maybe the third one she had hosted, and I had seen her name in 1 or 2 places before. So I was in the lobby of Rainbow Co-op, and you had a flyer hanging on the bulletin board, and it was just right at the time in my life when I was exploring and ready to dip my toes into these type of things. And I recognized your name, and I said, okay, I'm going. I was nervous, but I went to that first meetup. It was at Antonelli College, and not even sure if I introduced myself to you that night. I did introduce myself to Karen Parker, but I was a little intimidated to.
Oh, I'm so intimidating. Yes.
Like, I'm just a nobody,
That's the way I felt around Karen when I first met Karen. She's my best friend now, but the first time I met her, it was kind of like, hi, I'm Duann.
Karen, I didn't know
what you've done in Mississippi,
I didn't know who she was. So, except she said she worked at the gift shop at the Petrified Forest. So that's why I went and introduced myself. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't realize she was a bigger rock star than you were.
Definitely. Yeah. She actually opened doors for me in Mississippi when I moved back. Yeah.
Love her. And so
what did you feel when we had completed that meeting that night, the first one you attended? What was going through your mind during the meeting and afterwards?
Oh gosh, I was sitting in the back.
You were.
What's going on in my mind? I was just like probably my eyes were like this. You know, I mean, I felt comfortable. I didn't know if I would be comfortable. I felt comfortable. You know, there was a lot of people that were sitting toward the front that all knew each other. You know, because there was a lot of, you could tell they were all connected, and that wasn't intimidating, but it was just, you know, I mean, if anything, it was encouraging to know, okay, these aren't just a bunch of people just coming to these, but like you could tell they had a relationship outside this meeting.
It was promising. It was like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's not just me. And yeah.
I mean, it didn't scare me. I didn't know what to think. And so when I mean, I had nothing to compare it to except going to, you know, other kind of meetings, but like a small group at a church, you know, that's the only thing I'd had to compare it to. So that's a good question. I can't.
Well, you kept coming back, obviously.
Yeah, I did. I learned enough to be curious to learn more. And at the time I was very excited because what I learned at that, I think it was the first or the second meetup I went to, is when I heard that Soul Synergy was going to be open. And I lived out at the reservoir off Highway 25. And I just couldn't believe Rankin County.
Exactly. Neither could Jill and I. Jill and I couldn't believe it either. It's really interesting how this came about. Back in 2017, I started getting messages that major big time changes were coming. And I have to confess, I was kind of flippant about it. It was like, yeah, I know that. And they're going, no, we're trying to get your attention. Really big changes are coming. And I'm going, okay. And they said, we want you to help kind of prepare the way for them. And I'm going, okay. I mean, I'm used to saying, okay, but give me more information upon which to make a choice, a decision, right? You know, I tell people, once you get a call from Spirit, you cannot answer the phone. You know, you have free will. You can choose not to answer the phone, but the phone will keep ringing. And you can keep ignoring it if you want, but it will keep ringing, right? And so I was old enough and had enough experience with it. It was like, okay, tell me more. And I started getting all these messages about, because of these big changes coming, we need you to help with the spiritual awakening in Mississippi. There's a great spiritual awakening happening in Mississippi. And I'm going, really? No kidding. And I started looking at my own personal experience after having moved back. And it was like I was finding metaphysically minded people all over the place, but they felt really alone and lonely because they were scared to share that they were metaphysically minded. And so none of them were connecting with each other. They felt alone, like there was nobody else out there because they were afraid to share that they were metaphysically minded. And so these messages started coming through. You've got to find some way to help people find each other so they won't feel so alone. You've got to help people who are specifically light workers. In other words, they came here to work with the light. They're doing things like they're psychics and they're mediums and they're Reiki practitioners and they're this and they're that, astrologers and what have you. And you've got to help people find them because those kinds of people are going to help with these changes. And you also have to help those people who are like that get the word out that they're here and available and ready to help. And it's like I was trying to figure out how to do that. And the template had really been developed by Karen Parker when she opened up New Vibrations, very first major metaphysical bookstore in Mississippi, specifically Jackson. And when she had completed her contract and having opened that store and provided it and closed the store, she still, I can't remember if she did it immediately, but sometime after she closed the store, she continued having monthly meetings for people. And it was the one place that people were gathering. And I was going, okay, these people have found each other. How do we help other people find them and them find other people? Because so many people were incognito for good reasons, wondering what their family was going to think, what their employer was going to think, all of those kinds of things. And so it was like, okay. And then it was like, all of a sudden this website started coming up. It was like we needed a directory of services of all the people, who they were, what they did, where they did it, how they did it, so people would know you can do business with this person. We needed a calendar event, so anybody, anywhere, even somebody visiting from another state could find this calendar and find the people and the places and things that were going on, right? Instead of trying to go to every individual and find out what's going on with them, you could go to this one clearinghouse and find out about everything that was going on. And it may be you were coming in town just for the weekend. You could go to this calendar and find out what was going on all over the place that weekend, right? But it was also helping people. I refer to myself as the pain in the ass promoter, because I was going to promote everyone and everything I possibly could. I would harass people until they joined the directory to let people know about them. I mean, I was harassing people. I was doing the same thing with events. I'd find out about an event and go, you've got to get this on our calendar. And, and pretty soon it was like people would see me coming and they go, I know, I need to get that on the calendar. Oh, I know. Yeah, I just opened that up and I need to get it on the directory. I mean, people might have dreaded seeing me come, because it was like I just had this fire in the belly from having answered this call. And then it was like, okay, but we also need to see each other face to face. So we need to continue, having a place where people can meet, face to face in person. That's where the meetup came from. And then it was like, but what about the people who can't make it to the meetup and they miss the meetup? Oh, a Facebook page. It was like, it just kind of took on a life of its own. And then it was this, I knew the calling was to get all of this out there so people could find each other and find the services they wanted and needed. And those people who had the services could let people know, that they had what others wanted and needed. And that it was like, it was such a fire in the belly. It was like almost a compulsion. I couldn't stop myself, kind of thing. And when that happens, I know Spirit's working. It's like, okay, I'm answering the call. And the biggie was to get a firm foundation laid off of which other things could spring. And I realized that I was not going to be the one. After the foundation was laid, I was not going to be the one that continued to spring forth. It's like I was supposed to lay the firm foundation to where somebody else could take it and run with it. And that foundational base, it was like Spirit was like almost an emergency situation. You've got to get this firm and solid and set. So when these major changes come, it's already working kind of like a finely oiled machine. It's not like you're in the process of trying to create this when the big changes come. So, Krista, that first meeting, I think, was in September of 2017 in Antonelli. And we kept meeting in Antonelli until Jill opened up Soul Synergy in February of 2018, I think. And so we moved the meetings there because where I was getting that we're needing to all connect with each other, Jill was getting, and we need a brick and mortar place somewhere that we don't have right now, like retail where you can get resources, practitioner rooms where people can do their work. She wanted to have the first salt cave in Mississippi, have the yoga rooms, and the yoga room was also going to be a teaching room. And it's like, okay, I certainly didn't know how to do that. And I just, I was mainly just kind of moral support along the way, but it was then that, I think it was it was December of 2017. We started getting major big time media and news reports on what is referred to as disclosure talking about, UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Now they have all sorts of names for it now. But I mean, it was coming out in the New York Times. It was coming from politicians. It was coming from media. It was coming from the Pentagon. And so I'm going, okay, is this the big changes that you were talking about? We were trying to get prepared for, and they said yes, but more. And I'm going, whoa, okay, and so that kind of happened in 2017, and then the end of 2019, I started getting these messages. We're getting ready to separate you and set you apart for new work, and I'm going, okay. And I said, because of the changes that are coming. I'm going, okay, we're still laying some kind of foundational base here, right? And at the end of 2019, we really didn't know about COVID yet. It was kind of, we got inklings of it overseas, but it really hadn't hit the US yet. So when we rolled over into 2020, man, those messages became really heavy. It's like, we're getting ready to separate you and set you apart for new work. And I'm going, okay. And then I kept saying, okay, wondering, okay, what? And then all of a sudden it's like, stop teaching. I'm going, good. Jill and I had classes set up for like 2 or 3 years kind of thing. And I'm going, okay, I'm going to have to sit with this. Y'all are going to have to kind of explain this. And then they would say, go ahead.
In 2018, early 2018, you and Jill started teaching the psychics.
Yeah, the psychic courses, It's like now you're telling me in 2020 to stop teaching. And it's like, so I finally go, okay. So I called Jill, and she's like, along with me, what? And I'm going, yeah. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it yet. And I said, but they told me, and it wasn't so much stop teaching as much as it is, we're needing to take you in a new direction. And as long as you're focused on this, it's going to be hard to get your attention to bring you over here. And so it was like, okay. And Jill said, well, okay, if that's what you're being called to do. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and it was like, I'm not real good with conflict. I either avoid it at all costs, or I just completely go off the deep end and lose it. So it's like it's hard for me to find a happy medium there. It's either no conflict or I turn into a banshee, And so because I was having such a difficult time explaining to people why I wasn't going to continue teaching. And even Jill was having trouble, explaining, because she wanted to honor my confidentiality. It was almost like COVID went, use this as an excuse. COVID is an excuse. It was like, oh, okay. And I didn't really say that, but most people thought the reason I stopped teaching is because I didn't want to get out among the public with COVID because I have some autoimmune issues. And I thought, okay, let them think that, whatever,
And hey, that's a convenient, yeah.
And then I guess November 2020, later on that year, I started getting, can you let go of doing your seer sessions, which were my psychic readings? And I'm going, I can, but I thought this was something y'all had called me to do, and I do it the rest of life. And I said, we did call you to do it, but we're wanting you to release it. Thank you for the good work. We're wanting you to release it, and I'm going, okay. And I'm thinking, okay, I can do that. And I'm having faith and trusting that this new work, that y'all keep talking about, that as I release things, you're going to be bringing in the new things. And it never crossed my mind that passing the torch of Metaphysical Mississippi was going to be part of that. It was like, okay, not teaching, okay, not doing the psychic readings, okay. And then all of a sudden it was like, and could you release Metaphysical Mississippi? And I'm going, huh. What happens to it? It's like that seemed harder for me to release because it wasn't just about me, right? The teaching okay, other people can teach, right? Psychic readings, we had other psychics coming into town who were excellent. It's like other people can do that, right? And then it's like, let go of metaphysics. It's like, but what happens to it? I mean, it was like, it's really important for people to be able to find each other, especially now. I mean, this is 2020, right? The end of 2020, and we're still, full bloom with COVID. And said, oh, no, you're going to pass the torch. This isn't just something that you release, you pass the torch. I said, okay, you've got to show me who that's going to be before I'm willing to do that. And I have what I call the 3 rule. If I get a message and it's like I go like, okay, all right, now y'all know I got to get that 2 more times to make sure I'm getting it right. Okay. And that is exactly what happened when I'm saying, okay, who am I supposed to try to pass the torch to? And Krista's face came up in front of me and I went, okay, that's one. Great. Okay. Y'all know I'm going to have to get that 2 more times. And then it was like, I'm talking to Karen, my best friend, right? I'm going, okay, she knows, I tell her everything, right? And so it's like, what's going on with me? Now I'm supposed to be passing the torch. I said, and when I asked the question, I need to ask you, whose face do you think popped up? She went, oh, Krista's. And I went, 2? I'm going, okay, I'm waiting for the 3rd. Okay. My phone goes ding. I look down and it's a text from Krista going, I don't know. I was just told to text you or call you for some reason. I go, ta-da! We have number 3.
Now, I kind of had a reason, but not really. It was like, I was in a place of like, what do I do? I was trying to make decisions about things. And this thing was like, well, you just need to reach out to Joanne. Just reach out to Joanne. And I was not expecting that. That was.
No, you were not. It was like, if we had been on Zoom, we weren't. I mean, I immediately called her, right? I said, okay, we need to talk. I'm telling this whole story to her. But I think if I had seen her on Zoom instead of just by telephone, it would have been deer blinded by headlights look. Like, I'm going to call back and get a different person or different answer, right?
Yeah.
But finally, it was like Krista's going, okay. And I was, there was a part of me, it was hard to let it go. But once I knew it was going to be Krista, it was like all of that released. I knew it was going to be in good hands. And then there was a part of me that's going, oh my goodness, I'm passing this torch to her in the middle of a COVID pandemic, bless her heart. And I said, I'm really open and honest about this. When I pass the torch, I will not still try to be holding on to it while you're trying to take it. It's like that. It's like, I pass the torch, it is yours. I'm here for moral support, but I even told you at the time, I said, if you feel like that you need to call me and get my permission to change something or do something or what have you, I'm just going to go, what does your heart, what spirit say? It's yours now. It's not mine. I will support you in whatever your choice is. And I even told her, I said, even it gets to a point you're going, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Don't think it's coming back to me. You're going to either have to pass the torch.
I tried to give it back to you.
Or just let it die. Because that would have been part of it too. It would mean, the contract had been completed kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then watching her bring you in and all the things that y'all are doing together, it's like, oh, boy, does spirit know.
Yeah, at that time, you didn't know she had a crazy sister.
No, I just knew she was crazy. I didn't know the rest of the family was.
Family,
So as I'm doing all of this, I'm starting to get the messages about the new work. And it's to be the psychic channeler for a group called the Consortium. They refer to themselves as being a loosely, they really stress the word loosely organized group of volunteers. They're from different dimensions, star systems, even dead people, what have you, that are really wanting to help with the major, I guess, expansion of consciousness throughout humanity and on the planet, that Mother Earth herself is going through this process. And so that's why we are, when I was in school, you would get those mock-ups of what our solar system looked like. You'd have the sun in the middle and you'd have the planets around it. And I have to confess, I still had that visual until I saw a visual where it's not just stationary. Our solar system, not just our sun and our planets, our whole solar system is doing this, and it's doing it around the Milky Way galaxy, and the galaxy is doing that throughout the universe. So it was like, okay, where Mother Earth is and the solar system is, and even the Milky Way galaxy is now making things accessible, and things that are we're accessible to others that maybe we haven't been in the future. It's called, they're referring to it now as what, we used to say that there's certain times of the year that we feel like there's a thinning of the veil, and that it's easier to contact the other side or other dimensions. And they're saying it's that, but it's not just going to be a time of year anymore. It's just going to be a continual expansion of the thinning of the veil, and that people are going to be waking up. And that for those like me, I'm over 68 now. And for those like me, we had time to wake up. We could do it gradually. And what the consortium has been saying is that the people who are waking up now don't have that luxury. It's more of a quickening. It's like all of a sudden you get woke up and you're done like this instead of being a gradual thing. And so it can be very disorienting and discombobulating for people who are waking up now, because it's not a gradual thing like my generation that has gone through this process was able to do. But the plus of that the quickening means that it doesn't take you as long to catch up. Okay. Because it's like, once you wake up now, it's like this.
Yeah.
I look at the two of you, and when I was your age, it would never even cross my mind to be who y'all are and do what you're doing. But you wake up and then bam. Okay.
Well, I was just about to say that I feel the same way with the younger people, because right now, Metaphysical Mississippi, like when I joined, I felt like most of the people that were in it were already practitioners, had been. They're
the only ones who felt safe coming out of the closet. The other people were still.
Well, now there's a lot of new people coming into Metaphysical Mississippi who are new to all of this. Like they're new to metaphysical in general. So that's who I'm coming across more. And I feel like you, where, okay, so it took me 20 years to get where I am right now, when I first was like open to it. And I've got people who are just now waking up, and I feel like they've already shot past me. It's not a race, but it's just like, I see what you're saying. It's like, bam, and they're already like, and I'm like, okay, and I want to tell them, take your time, be slow. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But I think it's like, like they can't help it. It's like they're.
I think they have come in wired differently. In other words, for those of us who have been laying the foundational base, it took a certain kind of wiring to do that. And then those that came in to build on the foundational base came in probably with a different kind of wiring. And now with the younger generation, they're coming in with a completely different kind of wiring too. And I find it so refreshing. I can sometimes, very often have much more meaningful conversations with a teenager right now than I can people my own age, unless they are part of the metaphysical community. Because and I don't mean that in a negative way as much as it is that most of the people my age that are not part of the community don't have a frame of reference. They don't have a point of reference, and they're still caught up in religions based on fear. I'm a former Christian fundamentalist minister, and I joke with people, I left Christian fundamentalism not because I had a major part with the Christian part, but I had a major problem with the Christian part is that I began to have a major problem with the fundamentalist part. And I define fundamentalism as my way is the only one right, true way. And I found that's limiting an unlimited God. You know, God, goddess, dog, however we want to refer to the divine, right? Can do whatever he, she, it, they want to. It's like, I don't care what's in a book. I don't care, it's like, no, you can't limit the divine to a book. And that's why I spend a lot of time trying to help people understand the difference between religion and spirituality. And you can see it across the planet, even in the US, even though there's a lot of really loud people who scream otherwise, is that people are realizing that, and this is what I took up in fundamentalism, is that when I was doing reading and research, and of course, having gone to seminary as part of it, but continuing to do reading and research, that I personally have not been able to find a religion that was not based on someone's spiritual experience. And then what's so interesting, instead of that being interpreted as, and you can too, it's then turned into a religion where they say, this person's experience is the only experience. You should have this experience. If you don't have this experience, you're wrong. And it's like, wait a minute. I think we're kind of missing the point here. There's not, there may be one that I just don't know about, but I've not found any kind of religion that didn't originally start based on someone's personal spiritual experience. And then when it becomes a religion, they limit what the experience was and can be and can continue. Yes. Okay. So it's, and I also, I feel like any kind of religion and or spiritual path, quite frankly, that is based on fear about what might happen if I don't believe this, is not a very good foundational basis for a relationship. I joke, and it's not really a joke, but I find God-fearing Christians makes about as much sense to me as a husband-fearing wife.
Yes.
I mean, is that really a relationship? Fear, you talk about, well, weren't you scared of your parents? Yeah, when I was little, when I was younger, but you're supposed to grow up.
Right.
To get to that point of being afraid of your parents. It's like, we need to do that too. We need to grow up past that. That's not a basis upon which to have a relationship. And I feel like that the more we find and follow our own spiritual path, the more that it spans spirit and the divine and consciousness for everyone. That's one of the things that the consortium then came back. It's like, okay, no, don't do stop teaching, don't do the readings, let go Metaphysical Mississippi. Then it's like, okay, started doing this channeling, and putting out YouTube videos. And then it was like, okay, we also want you to take some classes, but you want that on YouTube too. Just put it out there. And I thought, okay, I'm getting in the swing of that, right? And then I get the first of this year, I get this message, thank you very much. And I'm going, you're welcome. And they're going, okay, you can go silent for the time being. And I'm going, go silent? I don't do that very well in just normal everyday reality. Okay, I can go silent. In other words, thank you for doing what we ask you to do. You've channeled for us. Okay. They also asked me to begin teaching again, and it might have been some of the same subjects I was teaching, but it's in a completely different energy now. It's not I don't teach them the way I used to. The content may be the same, but it has more to do with giving people tools to find and follow their own spiritual path. That's more of the energy. And they're going, okay, you can teach, and then go, oh, and we want you to start doing readings again. I'm going, okay, I'm really confused. I'm really confused. And they said, but we don't want you doing seer sessions like you used to. And I went, okay. So what kind of readings am I going to be doing? And they did a little snicker and go, seeker sessions, not seers. And I'm going, okay, so how is that going to be different? And it's that because the consortium is I guess they have a higher, wider, deeper view than we do from where they are. They've been telling me that the most important thing, again, that we can do for ourselves and others is to find and follow our own spiritual path. And so that's what a seeker session is. It's not a psychic reading. In other words, if you want to know whether or not the married man you're involved with right now is your twin flame, I am not the person to make an appointment with, okay? I mean, I'm tongue in cheek, but you know what I'm talking about. It's like, no, it's just, they were very specific that a seeker session, it's a psychic reading, but it's my channeling the message for the individual about what is the next best step on your path, on your spiritual path. And that may have something to do with a relationship or with your job or career or something else, but that's not the primary reason for it. So like after releasing all of this, it's almost like it's come back full circle, and I'm doing readings again and I'm teaching again. Doing a lot more writing. It's like when they said, just go silent for the time being. Thank you for the work you've done. Go silent for the time being. And I'm going, okay. And then they say, now we want you to write such and such. I'm going, I thought y'all told me to go silent. And I'm going, oh, shut up and write. Oh, okay. So now, it's three-pronged again, Krista. It's like doing the seeker sessions, teaching when I feel called to teach something. They may come back and say, okay, we're ready for you to do a channeling video or a psychic seminary sermon or something, but not so far. It's like, no, go silent on that for the time being and really focus in on your writing. And I'm going, okay, I can do that. And the writing has gone into a completely new and different direction. It's like everything. I feel like most writers and artists probably have this experience of it just feeling like that it's coming from someplace else and then it's out there in front of you.
Yes.
So I think it's a very common occurrence. Yeah, we may not refer to it as channeling, but I think that's what it is. That the writing is more like, okay, you've been around for a while, girl, almost 7 decades now. and it's time for you to get some things down in writing. And it's like, okay. And I'm going, so y'all gonna have to let me know what that is, kind of thing. And one of the first things I got had to do with there is a need for Krista texted me. She goes, "Hey, it's Women's History Month in March. Are you up to being interviewed because you're a woman and you're old?" Because I'm always talking about myself as, you know, I'm at the crone stage. I actually like the name hag because I like to redefine, you know. Okay. And what the messages I'm getting is us old crones, us hags, need to leave a legacy. That there are things that need to be said that haven't been said yet. And so what I'm working on now, Emily and I've been talking some about that. It's a book called The Matriarchal Missive. And the subtitle is Insight and Hindsight from the Silver and Gold Years of Life. And I just put out a call to submissions for women. You had to be at least 55 to submit an essay. And there were these certain the reasons for the book. You know, there was a list. This is why I've been asked to write this book. And one of them was, there are some women who are getting ready to pass over to the other side who haven't said some things that they need to say. And they need to be given an opportunity to say them before they go to the other side. And I thought, okay. And that wasn't the only reason for the book. There were like 4 principles about the reason for this book is that. But I'm bringing that one up because one of the essays that I accepted for publication in the book is written by a woman who's 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, okay, thank y'all, I get it. Okay. Another one just turned 90. And I'm going, okay, I really get it. It's like, I was wondering if anyone would even be interested in, making a submission to it. I just put it out in my newsletter, put it all over social media, and then just kind of waited, you know. And thank you, Krista. There's someone that got accepted for publication that would not have even submitted if it had not been for you. And I won't give that away yet, but just needing the encouragement. Yes, you do have something to say. You do have something to share, and please do it. Here's your opportunity to do it. So it's the messages I'm getting is going back to that most recent book that you had mentioned, Return of the Divine Feminine, Rise of the Divine, and the men who are calling for her return. One of the things I learned in the process of writing that book, I interviewed men, and I tell the story in the book about how when Spirit, said, we want you to write this book and we want you to interview men about it, I was not overly enthusiastic to begin with. It was kind of like, haven't we heard enough from men about these subjects? You know, you hear about women. But what they were telling me is that part of what's going on with this expansion of consciousness is the return of the divine feminine. She got lost along the way. I call it the heresy of monotheism, that somewhere along the way, the idea of the one original source of all creation from which everything sprang got turned into one male God who gave birth to it all. And he didn't need a goddess or a partner to do that, which, just doesn't even make sense, right? So it was like, because of monotheism being reinterpreted from a one original source of all creation from which we all sprang, got turned into one male God who gave birth to it all. We lost not just a goddess, but we lost a divine feminine energy that then left that one male God out of balance.
Yeah.
And he ran rampant, right? And so our planet did too. It became imbalanced. Not only were men imbalanced, women as well. And so what I learned through the process is that the return of what they had told me when they asked me to write the book is the divine feminine is returning. She is going to stimulate the rise of the divine masculine. And their union is going to give birth to a new creation on the planet. And I'm going, okay, I'm not exactly sure what this means, but I'm willing to go for it. Again, saying, okay, let's keep going. And what I learned with it is that that it's going to take the return of the divine feminine to bring balance to the divine masculine, to where it's something that not only men, but also women want to reclaim. Most of the men in the book are kind of like, I just didn't even want to be friends with God. He went around smiting people. That's Old Testament God, right? And then people will say, oh, but the New Testament God's different. And I'm going, in some ways, but that God still needed a blood sacrifice. Yeah. Somebody had to die, be sacrificed for how sinful we are. And it was like, I have screwed up so much in my life that I'm very compassionate toward other people's screw-ups, right? But I can't think of anything that I have done where even human beings would put me in jail overnight for.
Right.
Why in the world would I believe that the divine is less merciful than human beings, less understanding than human beings, and would not only put me in hell, but not just for overnight, for all eternity. And it's like the disconnect there is because that idea of the one male God left us imbalanced without the balancing of a goddess or a divine feminine. And so one of the things that happened with that book was when I would talk to the men about the divine masculine, they had a hard time relating to the divine masculine because of our obsolete concepts of that one male God. But when we started talking about the divine feminine, they knew who she was, man. They just would pour their hearts out. And once they started doing that, then they could get in touch with their divine masculine. And so it was like, so what they told me, the return of the divine feminine is going to stimulate the rise of the divine masculine, was true. And that their union, this new creation that's going to be birthed on the planet, is something that I'm terming the fully divine human, where we embody our own divinity as being sparks from the original source of all creation, and that we're still connected to the original source of all creation and to everyone and everything else. And that does bring a completely brand new human on the planet. It sounds very grandiose, but I don't know of any religion that doesn't prophesy about that possibility or predict that possibility. That the ideas as above, so below, heaven on earth, those kind of things.
Yeah.
I think we may have misunderstood them, and we still may, but it all started kind of coming together for me. It's like, okay, full circle. I now know what I'm getting a better handle on why I've been asked to do some of the things that I've been asked to do, and continuing to be asked to do new things I'm being asked to do.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube as well as your favorite podcast platforms.
So, Duann, when you're talking about the preparing the male and the female, the divine, it just sounds so much like the return of Christ and getting the church prepared for his bride. Every time you're saying that, I'm like, the return of Christ and his church getting prepared for the new creation. And I really don't know how much that subject is covered in some theology, certain Christian circles, but we grew up in a church where that was, we didn't emphasize heaven. It was the emphasis of the return of Christ and his bride, and getting his bride, the church, prepared for his return. So,
in our religion, it wasn't that
go on.
It wasn't that we were going somewhere. It was that he was going to come back and bring heaven on earth is what which I don't think that's not the common Western Christian.
No, it's not. Usually it's the hellfire and brimstone, that if you don't get on board, you're going to be in eternal damnation.
But we did believe we were the only true church.
Yes. But, this return of the divine feminine and the rise of the divine masculine, though, all this everything that you're saying, it sounds very familiar to me because that's what I was brought up in.
And
So I jive with all that.
And one of the things that's interesting about that is that you can see that there are religions who are trying to welcome her back, right? But then you have this knee-jerk response. In the Catholic Church, you still can't have female priests. In the Southern Baptist Convention, they are removing fellowship from churches that have women as pastors. And so especially during Women's History Month of 2023, you wouldn't think that we would still be dealing with these religious concepts, because even in what you were taught, it wasn't about women. It wasn't about the divine feminine. It was about his church, someone or something that belonged to him that he was coming to sustain. And so it depowers the feminine power in all of that. It's like I have a real affinity with Mother Mary, but I also know that way that she has been presented is a watered down version of the goddess or goddess energy, because the Catholic Church long ago couldn't get people to stop their goddess worshiping ways, because they could even see in all of Mother Nature that creation wasn't just by a man, and it's not just by a woman. And I really want us to get past the idea of gender, what is male and what is female. What we're really getting into here is energy, is principles, is that we have the divine. All men have divine feminine and all women have divine masculine. And I feel like the concept of duality really did a number on us with that. In other words, people go, oh, it's got to be right or wrong, good or bad, light or dark, blah, blah. Oh, you've got to have the dark, the light, what have you. And I'm going, no, everything's a continuum. It isn't just black or white, it's black, and then dark gray and light gray, and and then there's kind of a neutral color, and then there's kind of a muted white, and then there's another beige looking thing, and you can get to white. Because we are so hung up on duality that it's either this or that, we miss the whole idea of it doesn't have to be either this or that, male or female, divine masculine or divine feminine, that it's a both and. It is talking about not duality, but wholeness. What do we need to bring into union within ourselves? And I just don't feel like that we can do that without bringing the divine feminine back into the picture. Not in a watered down version as Mother Mary, or a watered down version of, his church.
And the female has to be involved in it because she's the one who births it. And
that's one of the things I think that paganism was so aware of. And outwardly paganism means is it just not subscribing, to one of the major religions.
Yes.
It's more earth-based, and it's the idea that the womb of creation, is a very powerful concept, that it's very difficult to create without going into some sort of womb yourself. It doesn't mean that only women give birth or create. Men do too, but we've so relegated it into duality, the either or instead of the both and, that we end up being incomplete human beings who aren't whole within ourselves. And that really leads us to do some stupid things. We go out there looking for those other parts of ourselves in other people.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you can't do that. They don't have what you need. It's in you and where your connection.
It's more of a thing that I've been thinking for a while, and it's the same thing I think Duann's saying, is because I've wondered if we're not even looking at it from a third dimensional perspective, if humanity's not evolving into a more what's the scientific word, androgynous species.
Mhm.
And I've thought that for years. I've wondered about that even if we're not even looking at all the, that we're going through cycles and even if we're just looking at from a scientific, I don't know.
I think that comes up in this conversation a lot, because when we start looking at divine masculine, divine feminine, our frame of reference is male and female, and so we start getting caught up in third dimensional, men and women, and it's not about men becoming more like women or women becoming more like men or all men becoming the same or all women becoming the same. This is something that is, all of this is a part of all of us. And when we start trying to divide it into only this group has this, only group has that, we're coming to the point. I think it's really interesting, and I've this has happened to me more times than I can count, is that as long as I use the word God, I don't have to explain myself, right? But anytime I use the word goddess, even people I find who are very religiously or spiritually progressive, even metaphysical, find the need to remind me, well, God, the divine, is really spirit, is all inclusive and what have you, that God isn't male or female, the divine isn't male or female, it's God is spirit. And then I will ask them, why is it you felt the need to explain that to me when I use the word goddess, but not when I use the word God? And that lets me know that there's a disconnect there somewhere. If I don't have to explain that God is all inclusive spirit, that God is spirit, not a man, I shouldn't have to explain that goddess isn't an all-inclusive spirit, that just a woman. But you can see the disconnect just that is that using the word God's fine. But when you use the word goddess, it's like it has to be defined, or somebody feels like that they have to explain, well, we're not really talking about a goddess, we're actually talking about a spirit. And I'm going, but people don't usually feel the same need to talk about God in that way. And it's like, that's where the disconnect is. We're used to talking about God in male terms. And I'd like to suggest that until we feel just as comfortable talking about goddess and using female terms, that we have an imbalance here. We have a disconnect.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I never really thought about
It doesn't have to
that.
do with gender. It doesn't have to do with gender. And that's usually where, when I'm doing presentations, especially on the book, you can tell that people are starting to get uncomfortable. You're wanting us to be androgynous, or you're wanting us to be gay or lesbian. And what I'm trying to point out is that if you're focusing on following your own personal spiritual path, you're finding and following your own path, it really shouldn't be anybody else's business what that means for you, what that means as far as gender preference or identification, or what your rituals are, or what your ceremonies are. or what kind of jewelry you wear. In other words, I know it's this grandiose, idealistic view, starry eyes, but in my ideal world, everybody gets to find and follow their own spiritual path, and everybody is happy that not only they get to do it, but that everybody else is getting to do it too.
Jeez. Yeah.
And all religions tell us too, you can have a personal relationship with God. But
as long as you do it this way.
As long as you're in this box, you have a personal relationship. And then I go, well, then that's not personal. That's your idea of my relationship. If I can have a personal relationship with God, well, then it's my personal relationship. It's really none of your business unless I want to share it. Or you can ask questions and I'll share it with you. But usually when people are asking questions, oh, well, what do you believe? They're getting ready to witness to you. And it's like, if you're really curious, I'm more than happy to share, where I am right now. And I'll say, my concepts of God or the divine aren't the same concepts when I was 5 years old.
Right.
God, please don't let your concepts of God, the divine goddess, be the same ones you had when you were 5 years old. And then I have to point out, even though I'm over 68, I hope if I live to be 80, that my concept of God and Goddess and divine would have grown even more.
Yes.
I don't want that to stop. I don't want it to be like when I was 5, but I don't want it to be like when it was 5 years ago. Or 5 years from now, I don't want it to be exactly like it is now. It means that I haven't continued to question and grow and expand.
Joanne.
Yes.
You do not look like you're 68.
Oh, well, thank you.
Gosh. I'm looking at your face and I'm like, spring chicken.
Well, I've got that Creek Indian blood that y'all do.
Oh,
I guess my iris is showing.
I mean, wow. I mean,
Oh yeah, Emily, did you know she was Creek also?
it's good to have a fellow Creek in here. Not
Of course, I didn't even find out about that until 2020. So I can't claim some kind of ethnic heritage because I was ignorant, but it's and maybe I have a really good filter. Maybe I have a really good filter on.
Yeah, no, I have a card. I'm a Carrion card member.
Oh, I know. Kristen told me that.
Yes. So you probably look more Creek than I do. I do.
I think this has more to do with mulatto and Creole blood than it is the Creek. But yeah, I'm a major big time Heinz 57. I just all over the place.
Well, we got some Cajun too, but it doesn't show up in me and Emily.
I love what you were saying about that you're called to seeker to help those who are seeking. And I've had similar messages that you like prepare the way. I've had those things come up in my life when I was in but mine was heavy. I don't know anything else other than I've just studied the Bible. I haven't studied any of the other pagan. I can't, all the other metaphysical goddess, all, what do you call that? Folklore or other traditions that were handed down. I don't have an understanding of all religions. I just read the Bible and I've had those prepare the way. Those things have come across my radar for myself. And I do feel a similar call. And now that you've articulated it, that's what I was feeling with Metaphysical Mississippi. I started off at Granny's front porch, doing it there, that I am providing information for seekers. And I have a wealth of information, a wealth of stuff that I collected from my maternal bloodline and my paternal, and I'm sharing it online for seekers. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I'm like,
You're finding and following your path.
Yes, I am.
And when we do that, I may be in a fantasy world, but I feel like when we are finding and following our own personal path, that there's something about it that we know we're on our path. It doesn't mean that we can't take a detour or change paths or go to a different path or what have you. But it's like, that's why I describe the seeker sessions, that they're not so much psychic readings as much as they are, what's the next best step on my path? What is the next best step? There's lots of steps I can take, and really none of them are wrong. I'll end up where I'm supposed to be anyway. I just could make it a lot easier on myself if I took the next step.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes that we know what it is, but just having some type of confirmation from someone, or someone who says it a little bit differently, or it's like you were talking about not knowing a lot about religions, that you've just read the Bible and what have you. If reading the Bible is in other words, if that is when finding and following your spiritual path, is that one of the ways you do it is still continuing to read the Bible, or still going to a Christian church, hopefully not a fundamentalist one, but again, that is your path. I am here to find and follow my path. And I also feel that I'm called to tell other people, and you are too, and you can too, and nobody has a right to tell you otherwise.
Yes. Ooh, but I mean, you have to change your outlook on everything about life when you start becoming a seeker of following.
No, Emily, you don't have to. You just automatically do it.
It is a choice too.
It's a choice, but it's like, if you just let it, it's not like, oh, I've got to. It just happens.
Yeah.
And Emily, I can so identify with what you're saying personally, and I feel like there's people watching who will be watching or listening to this who are going the same thing. I mean, when I left organized religion, when I realized I was not only no longer a Christian fundamentalist, but I was no longer what somebody would define as a Christian, that was one of the most. That was a period of such fear and trembling in my life that sometimes I would have anxiety and panic attacks. Okay. It was not only my education. I had gone to a Southern Baptist college. I'd gone to a Southern Baptist seminary. I was working downtown Nashville, Tennessee for the Southern Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist Convention building. I had worked for Southern Baptist churches. I had worked for Southern Baptist newspapers. Okay. And when I realized that it came down to two things, that first of all, there was not a place there really and truly for me as a woman. Okay. In being able to equally contribute. Yeah. And especially not a woman who had highly developed psychic gifts, and they were continuing to grow and expand exponentially and would not keep in that box anymore. So I was not only leaving behind my education and my experience and my religion, but also the way I'd been making my living. Okay. So when I realized, for me, it was like, I don't fit in this box anymore. And I would try to fit. I would try to find ways to stay in that box and fit in that box. And the box just wasn't big enough. And then I realized what I'm trying to do is limit not only my personal relationship of what's going on with me, but limiting the possibilities of what God or goddess or dog could do for me, with me. You know what I'm saying? Where my be taken. But I understand. It's like, it was a very much fear and trembling, like I say, even anxiety, panic attacks, but I couldn't stay in that box. In other words, I was going to have to completely shut down who I was and what spirit was trying to share with me and help me grow and develop. I was just going to have to go around like this. La, 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 la. And it finally got to the point, okay, for me, it started, I've got to find another job. And when I find that other job where they're not going to require me to go to church to keep the job, then I'm going to stop going to church. And I'm going to find and follow the path that I'm feeling led on.
You know, what is in our, well, most of us do have families, other people in our household. Well, this has always been the big yes, issue, even with people who are following a religion and somebody whose mate does not go to church, you know, still is like, how do you coexist? How do you still kind of sometimes you have to sort of still be in the box, but know that you can get out of the box until you sort through what you're leaving. I mean, you know,
nobody can make those choices and decisions but you. In other words, the way you follow your path, doing that may be different than the way Krista would do it or the way I would do it. Krista would do it different than me. In other words, they're not all nobody can tell you how you're supposed to do that. And one of the things that I did learn along the way is that as I was finding and following my path, and I continue to do that on a daily basis, somebody will ask you, well, what is your path now? And I go, it's the same one it's been for a really long time. It's called bumbling and stumbling. And as I bumble and stumble my way upon following my path, okay, that if I will just focus on that, if there's people, places, and things, environments, experiences that fall away because of that, it's because this new path is saying, okay, if you won't hold on to that, we got some really cool shit up here in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, and as long as we're holding on to something, notice we can't receive like this. We're going to have to do this to receive. And so I think that helps. And too, like I say, you know, I've been here almost 7 decades now. So I have a lot of experience with this. But when I first started doing it, letting go of something without knowing what was going to replace it, or if anything was going to replace it, was a very scary prospect. Krista, when you and I were talking about, you know, my passing the torch in metaphysical Mississippi to you, that was one of the things that came up for you. It's like, okay, I want, you were so connected. It's like, I want to really connect and confirm that this is the right thing for me, not just for me, but it would be the right thing for metaphysical Mississippi, that would be the right thing for all the people that are involved in metaphysical Mississippi. And you didn't say it this way, but I knew you also wanted to make sure that it was going to be the right thing for you because you wanted it to be the right thing for me. In other words, you didn't want to say yes and then disappoint me. And I kept saying, you can't disappoint me. You just find it, follow your path with this. And you kept going, but you created it. You bought it. Like, and now you can have it. and I'm not going to hold on to anything. And look, just what we're doing here today wasn't because, okay, it may have been I laid a foundational base with metaphysical Mississippi, but I wasn't the one who did this. Y'all are. Okay. It's like Krista took it, and then she knew that there were other people she wanted to get involved. Those people may come and go. It's like, for this place on the path, we need this kind of person. Okay, we don't need that person anymore. We need this new kind of person, or we need this. In other words, life is a step-by-step process, and sometimes we sprain our ankle along the way and land flat on our face, and we're all scarred up, and we have to get back up and go, well, okay, that step didn't work very well.
That's happened, and it has taken me. There's still so much that I need to do, that I want to do with it, and you know, Emily knows this. I wake up sometimes before the sun comes up, and I do what I can. And her and I are working at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then I just have, I try I'm trying, but I make a lot of mistakes. But the thing is, I don't feel like it's mine either. I'm the caretaker. And one day I may pass the responsibility on to someone else. But even though I'm the caretaker, I'm the director now, I feel like I'm more of a servant to it, but yet also aware that if it asks something of me that I cannot do, I either say no or I pass it on to someone. And in other words, I'm not a blind servant to it.
Good.
I
You can't
I can
find
do
and follow your path that way. That's
Right.
following somebody else's path or a path that they want you to follow.
And
Yeah.
I think the essence or spirit that is Metaphysical Mississippi does understand that and does respect that and honor that I want to serve, but I have to do it in the way that I'm capable. I can't do things that I'm not capable of
One
doing.
thing I'm really good at that it has taken me, again, like I say, almost 7 decades now, but one of the things that I noticed you're really good at, that when you feel like you are called to do something, but you realize that you don't know how to do it yet, that you will find somebody who does or can teach you how. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not like you feel like that you have to do it all on your own, by yourself, not ask for help. For me, it had more to do with, it was such they were giving me such an emergency situation. You got to get this foundational base built before the changes come. And of course, now we know that was COVID and all sorts of things. But back then I didn't know. It was like, okay. And I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to blah, blah, and I was just obsessed. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, now the foundational base has been, we can just kind of maintain, and it was like, okay. All right. It's working pretty good. Not perfect. Could really, take somebody that knows more than I know about all of this stuff. I didn't even know how to develop a website back then. It was like, I'd always hired somebody else to do the website, and I realized that nobody could understand what I was getting. And I learned how to do it myself because I couldn't explain it to somebody else. But it's like, for me, it was an emergency situation because the COVID and the other changes were like breathing down my neck.
Yeah.
Now it's more of, or my take on it is that y'all taking and running with it has to do with the expansion of it. And the expansion of it also means that there may be somebody that you say, hey, I noticed that y'all did a pop-up in Starkville, I think it was.
Yeah.
There might be somebody up there, you go, okay, now you're supposed to take it and run with it up here.
Yeah.
And it expands. In other words, you're not thinking, okay, I've got to make this happen in Starkville. It's like, no, there's somebody in Starkville who can take it and run with it. In other words, you know how to expand in a way that before I even had the foundational base, I didn't even know if there were any people in Starkville that were metaphysical. I thought there probably was.
We know in our heart, but the figuring out how to do it we're definitely still in that learning curve.
Mhm.
And if there's anything that I have to remind myself as I serve Metaphysical Mississippi, when I say serve, not as a slave, but as a participant.
Talking about being of service, not being subservient.
Exactly.
Yes.
It is to stay constantly in a state of letting it evolve. And as soon as I may make a decision or we figure out a way we're going to do something, to constantly, though, be open to doing it different. I mean, I've made some rules to the Facebook group recently, and I'm already like, okay, now that rule, I'm going to change that rule. But, I have to be willing to make mistakes. I have to be willing.
What expansion of consciousness is all about. In other words, you're not trying to fit something into a box. You're going, wait a minute. Okay, we're starting out with this box, but this box may turn into a triangle. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May turn into a step ladder. I don't know what it's going to turn into, but I'm not going to make it fit into this box. And yeah, I'm going to make lots of mistakes along the way. Okay. That's again, being an old hag now, is I'm realizing that being a perfectionist earlier in my life kept me from growing. It kept me from growing because I wouldn't say it or do it unless I thought it was perfect. And how many things did I not say, did I not do because I didn't have the time or the expertise or what have you to do it perfect? And it was like, nobody does anything perfect. I don't care even if you think it's perfect. It ain't. Somebody's going to find something wrong with it.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Oh, that's
And
that's the truth. We are
Part
not
of
perfection in this podcast.
I think that's healthy. This has been so delightful. I just love both of you so much, and just y'all just continue to bumble and stumble and find laughter along the way. I think that's the biggie. I don't know if y'all know Ben Tripp or not, but used to be that when Jill and I were teaching, we would introduce ourselves. Jill would be the psychic medium, and I would be the psychic, channeler, what have you. And Ben came up to me after some kind of class or meeting, what have you. And he said, "You know how y'all should introduce yourselves?" I go, "How?" He goes, "Jill is the psychic medium. Duann, you're the psychic comedian."
yeah.
Because what do I say? I sign all my emails, lightening up enlightenment. Let's lighten this up. Okay.
Yeah.
And if all you're saying is love and light, you're missing another L.
Laughter.
Needs to be.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes.
Thank you. I have been-
you.
This was divine timing, perfect timing.
It was supposed to happen.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I love you so much. And
Well,
rest
that's going.
of your day.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent.